Hey everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We'll spend the next three segments talking about Lafourche Parish and the year that was 2022. Great year to look back on because of the years that we had come back out of, right? Yeah. 21 wasn't great, and the 2 years before that weren't great. So 22 seemed to be kind of a light at the end of the tunnel a little bit.
It was. You know, a lot of the beginning part, January, February, March, we were still so focused on the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. We were just then getting the housing mission really back up and running, getting people into those FEMA units. The state had stepped up with their sheltering program in the RV campers. So that took a bulk of our time. That was weekly conference calls, sometimes daily stuff. And then we began the process that you and I have talked about before, the fight with FEMA. Right. To begin to work through those issues of how do we begin to fix the stuff that was broken during the hurricane. So it's been a long, hard fought year, I guess, for us.
Sure.
Luckily, we got through hurricane season with zero issues, which was awesome. Not only for us and government gave us some time to breathe and catch up on some stuff that we had put off for 7 or 8 months because of Ida, and I tend to use that as an excuse sometimes. But people don't even begin to understand what it's like in the aftermath of that.
Sure.
You're dealing with your own home issues. You're fighting with your insurance company, but we have to do that, and I say that for all of the parish presidents, right? We have to do that 100,000 times over.
Exactly.
Because we're dealing with every single constituent and every single problem that pops up, along with all of our districts. Whether it was working with the water district to get those guys back up and running, as they began to fix water lines and things like that after the hurricane. So it gets very intense for us, I guess. So it's not really an excuse, but it's something that we continue to struggle with, the aftermath. And you always look back at New Orleans and you see the 5 or so years after Katrina, and you go, well, how did these guys screw this up this bad? How are they still messing with this stuff? And now you begin to understand when you had your version of Katrina, right? And you get to see the constant push that we have to go through. But those first few months we're still dedicated to Hurricane Ida, and then we got into the summer and got through hurricane season and began to push through some of the projects that we probably should have started in January or at the end of 2021. So we're seeing that flow through finally happen, seeing a lot of those projects come to fruition, whether they be the new rec fields we're doing down the bayou, putting in turf finally down in South Lafourche. We've done that in the northern end of the parish in partnership with the city of Thibodaux for a few years now, and it was a commitment we made. A lot of people play travel ball, especially in that South Lafourche community, and a lot of those ball fields they play on when they travel are turf, so we wanted to be able to give them that experience there at home in the LaRose and Golometa fields. So we've begun to work on 2 of those fields, and that's something we're going to continue to push through. Something we'll look forward to again in 2023 is doing another couple of fields for those travel ball teams and those what I call the biddy ball teams down the bayou. We begin to work on a lot of drainage infrastructure again. We cranked up 2 new. That never stops, right? Uh-huh. There was the text message back and forth with a group, and President Dove over the holidays where he opened up a set of new fishing piers, and the joke was, well, he finally built something other than a pump station, right? So now I'm the guy who's building all the pump stations, I guess, which feels weird, but we cranked off a couple of new ones this year, which was good, and it was good to open those up. And have FEMA come down and actually look at them as part of the rebuilding process from the hurricane, because those FEMA guys walk on those pump stations and they start to look around and they go, you guys really built this with your own money?
Yeah, who paid for this?
Yeah, right. We did. That's the kind of stuff we need to really keep our community safe and keep businesses up and running and not let people flood, right? So building those new state-of-the-art pump stations, using new hydraulic standards, working with our engineers and our staff over in Public Works, rethinking the way we do drainage in Lafourche Parish going into the next decade. So those sorts of things are finally starting to come off the shelf, and it's been really good.
Hey, look, we appreciate the federal help, but I also get a sense of pride when we do these things ourselves, and I mean we as a collective, around the whole area, that we're not waiting just for handouts for somebody. So, hey, let's take it upon ourselves to do the things we need. So that's good you see that. When you talk about aftermath, right, as you go in, part of it is labor, right, and bidding against Terrebonne and St. Charles and Lafourche and Assumption, everybody else that got hit by these storms. So that has been taking up a lot of your time too, and a lot of the government work getting started again after you talk about you just talk about the DA's office. They hadn't had a trial in a year or two, because they couldn't have people together after COVID. So all of that coming together, I'm sure you almost had to kind of, hey, we got to start. I think COVID started about 2 weeks after you took office. So we always kind of joke about that, but you almost have to retrain yourself to this is how it's going to be going forward.
Going forward, yeah. And, as we look toward how do we put the place back together, we always try to take care of our local contractors and engineers first the best we can, because those are the guys who are embedded with us. But those local engineers and contractors are doing work for us. They're doing work for Terrebonne. They're doing work for our school systems, our hospital districts. Right. So those guys are overrun as well, right? All while their employees and those engineers and those company owners are trying to rebuild their own stuff, right? So it's been a struggle collectively as a community. But look, I got to say the partnerships that we have with our engineers, with our contractors, those guys bust their butts every day, and they turn out some fabulous work. Although sometimes I get a little irritated and we got to, scream a little bit about how slow we're moving, right? But those guys do an awesome job, and it's beginning to show off. And we were talking before we got on the show about the interview on WWL Radio with Tommy Tucker, and he asked in the beginning, where did I think we were? And, we're about 75% of the way there, and he sounded kind of shocked by it. And I was like, yeah, it's because of our community. Our community stepped up. We really didn't wait, and although it's been slow to a certain standpoint, we've moved really fast when you look at even Southwest Louisiana, or again, thinking back to Katrina and New Orleans. Now, we didn't have the water they did because we've invested in our levee systems and flood protection, but the wind screwed us up pretty bad.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, look, New Orleans wasn't even a wind event, really. I mean, that was just a flood event. But yeah, no doubt that was one of those storms, that comes through. And we saw it with Ian, I guess, this year in Fort Myers. So those things, if they keep coming like this, I don't know what we're going to do. So hopefully it'll take some years off like it did after Katrina. The guy in New Orleans was like surprised that the Lafourche was doing, wait, y'all doing good? Yeah. And he also was, the one thing I thought, you guys have become almost a bedroom community to a lot of the river. All those plants along the river, people live in Lafourche and drive to work, also to New Orleans, which he seemed surprised about. But that's got to be a good sector for you. Now, I don't know if our interest rates is going to screw this all up, but that's been a great sector to make Lafourche the bedroom community of the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge area.
Yeah, and it has. Thibodaux's been, the city of Thibodaux has been a retirement or recognized as a retirement community for several years now, probably the last 6 or 8 years, because of the downtown network, the restaurants, the retail stuff. But the school board superintendent and I have been traveling around talking to teachers about a tax reform package that we've been working on that's going to go to the ballot next year, and hopefully the voters will approve it. And in that presentation, we talk about, in comparison to the region, right? Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Mary, St. Charles, St. James, St. John. And when you look at the taxable value of those other parishes, right, in comparison to not only what our teachers get paid, but what our law enforcement gets paid, firefighters, government personnel, the whole 9 yards, their tax value is way higher, right? And we got through the first probably 5 or 6 presentations to the faculty at some of the schools, and then it began to dawn on me that when Superintendent Martin would say that, people would automatically kind of turn their heads and look at me because they go, well, Archie, what the heck are you doing, right?
Yeah,
why are those values so far different, right? When you look at us, it works out to where we're right about $1 billion in taxable value. When you look at somebody like St. Charles and my good friend Matt Jewell, who's the parish president over there, their taxable value is somewhere about $1.6 billion. So again, they're kind of looking at me going, well, what's wrong here? Well, of course, they have the river, they have the plants, they have the water for threes and the Occidentals and those guys. But we're the place everybody's coming home to live. When you look at the population, we're right about 98,000 people. St. Charles is right about 50, 52. St. James is right about 20 or 22,000. So we're the place people are coming to live every night. And while they're driving to those plants, they're driving to Baton Rouge, maybe driving to New Orleans, they're coming back home every night with their paychecks. And we've seen probably 600 new lots become developed in Lafourche in the last 6 months, 8 months of the year. There's a new subdivision being developed right now off of 308, right before you get into the city limits of Thibodaux, which is another 100 or so lots, bigger homes. So again, we're becoming that bedroom community, which is really nice. It's from a taxable value.
Is that a good thing?
It is a good thing, right? It's putting more houses onto the market, and a lot of these the houses were being bought by developers and being built out, and it's those $250,000, $350,000 starter homes, right? And it's the younger group. It's the people my age that are 30 to 40 year olds that are driving to the river, maybe plant operators driving to Baton Rouge to BSF or something like that. But they're coming home every night because they don't want to live there because of the traffic. It's easy to drive there and have dinner for a date night, go see a movie, go to whatever. But it's nice to come back home to the subtle country, of Lafourche. So it's been a good thing for us. It's helped kind of diversify a little bit. Thibodaux's becoming that. And has become that retail hub. Central Lafourche continues to be our light manufacturing, agricultural standpoint. And again, South Lafourche has always been seafood or shrimpers, or crabbers or oystermen, and then again Port Fouchon, right? If we didn't have that thing,
Right.
we'd be a much different
helps
community.
out, right.
But that place keeps growing and booming. And as we see things transition next year again, looking toward the greener industries, right? Looking toward offshore wind, I think is going to be, people laugh at me all the time when I say this, but I think it's going to be a really huge thing for Lafourche. You're going to see those blades and other things manufactured in New Orleans, but they're going to have to float out here. And I think a lot of those service industries, a lot of the lift boats and the technology and the expertise we have in those industries and in the marine industry in Fouchon is going to pay off. And you're going to see a lot of those companies in those service industries start to pivot to where they can go throw up some windmills and put some people back to work or put their boats back to work. That's where you're going to see it happening. Chet and I went, the Port Commission Director, we had a offshore wind forum earlier this year in Atlantic City. And they had a whole Gulf of Mexico session in the morning, and they probably had 75 chairs set up in the room. And as people started to flow in, we wound up with over 200 people in the room just focused on the Gulf. And it was people from our area, the marine industry, the electronics industry, the service industries that go along with this, that were really interested in what happens with these lease sales come probably the end of the first quarter of 2023. And I think, again, it's gonna change the game for us. It's people laugh, but I've copyrighted that Lafourche will be the gateway to Gulf wind. We're going to put it on socks and hats. We're going to put it on all kind of stuff, and we're going to market the heck out of Lafourche so that when people want to come do wind stuff, they know about the port. They know about the things that we're doing, the tax friendliness and the propositions that we've done with other businesses that we could do with them. And already that's starting to pay dividends. We're having conversations with companies that want to bring some stuff in to look at offshore wind. So it's going to, again, help our economy and put people back to work, hopefully.
Well, especially what they're doing in Washington, it seems like they're pushing that, and they're going to give tax credits and that kind of stuff, and kind of put their finger on it to make it clean, which would be good, too. So you're going to have one, I guess the first one will be out of like Lake Charles, out of Calcasieu, and then one out of Houston. But that doesn't mean Lafourche can't service those industries.
And one of the things that we tried to point out to BOEM and Archie Chaisson from the port, myself, and Representative Ogeron all sit on the Gulf of Mexico Wind Task Force. And we've been working at this for a couple of years now. It was something the governor requested that BOEM set up, and they took him up on it. And there's people from all over the Gulf Coast region. There's a majority of us are from Louisiana. But one of the things we've told them was, instead of hyper-focusing on these small areas, right, and they're worried about pipelines and shrimp and oysters and fishing and all this other fun stuff, but let the industry dictate where they want to go, right? These guys have done it in Europe. They've done it on the East Coast. There was a bid opening for a lease sale out of California off their coast a couple of weeks ago. Let industry figure out where they want to go, right? Because, there may be pipelines there, but maybe we can tap into them.
Use them, right.
And use the environmental impacts from the pipeline already be there to run that cable onshore.
Right.
So there are some benefits to having pipelines and stuff there.
Yeah, and you got Joe Ogeron down there, who was a nuclear physicist or whatever he was. At
Rocket
University of
scientist Joe,
Texas.
that's right.
So he can always help you out, too.
No doubt.
So, as you end a year and when you come back from break, you're going to be beginning a year. So I think you were telling me off the air that you told all of your people that work for you, hey, give me your priorities, and we're going to see where we're at starting in 23. Right?
Yeah, and it's something we always do that kind of mid-year when we start our budget process. So we kind of did that back in the summer of this year. But the way the holidays fall, we run a funky schedule, and we're always closed between the week between Christmas and New Year's. So it gives us some downtime. But I still sit back at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. And I fired him off an email today and said, give me your top 3 priorities for 2023, right? If you had an unlimited amount of money, unlimited amount of time, what is the top 3 things you want to accomplish for your department, right? Whether we're talking public works, finance, Mitch is the parish administrator who kind of runs the day-to-day stuff. But tell me what you want to see. And I'm anxious to kind of get those emails back as we get back to work on Monday, and then when we have our first, I drag them in every week, and some of them hate it. We all hate it from time to time, but all 7 department heads get together every Tuesday in our office, and we hash out the week. We hash out council agendas for the following week, whatever's coming up, the big ticket items, stuff we need to make decisions on. But I'm anxious to see what they come back with and hash it out for that first meeting and really see where they want to go. Right. We're doing a couple of new pump stations this year that are some of it's going to be tied to FEMA reimbursements, but it's bigger and better pump stations. Again, we're getting back to rethinking the hydraulics, and we have 86 pump stations spread out across Lafourche Parish, and Years ago we used to get into these battles where, a subdivision would flood and the subdivision would start to scream, and we'd kind of say, okay, we go put a little pump station behind the subdivision. It would take care of just their water. Well, then the next subdivision, we pump it somewhere else. So we created this chain effect, but then we wound up with all these little systems.
Right.
So we're really starting to rethink that and how we can build bigger consolidated pump stations and move water more efficiently, take care of the interior drainage of the neighborhoods, upsize some culverts, stuff like that. So you're going to see a lot of those projects happen. The interior stuff happen next year. We're going to be doing a couple more $1 million worth of road work in across the parish, up the bayou, down the bayou, taking care of the councilman's priorities. We asked them to, give us your top 5 streets that you want to see paved, drainage work you want to see done. So we're going to see a couple of new pump stations. The biggest one is going to be the Butch Hill pump station, which kind of takes care of the prairie behind the hospital, the old Sugar Lane golf course and race in that area. Probably some 10, 12,000 homes in that drainage basin. Going to be a brand new 8-bay pump station. Again, I'm feeling a little bit like President Dove when I start to talk about these things. I get why he gets so excited over them, because they're really cool once you get to crank them up. But we're going to look toward that. The number one complaint we heard after the hurricane was, we didn't have a place for people to bring debris if they wanted to bring it, or in general just trash, similar to what Terrebonne has at Ashland. So we're going to take a piece of the property next to the shooting range on how we wanted it to. That property splits in half. The sheriff office has half for the shooting range. We have the other half. And we're going to build a big waste collection, a residential waste collection facility. And next time I come on, I'll bring some pictures so we can show it. But it'll be a big concrete ramp you can drive up on. You'll back up to a dumpster and then throw your trash or whatever you have. There'll be a spot for green debris, and that will either burn or chip at the end of the day. But we're working on that with some engineers.
Was that used after Katrina? And I don't mean
so it was used after Ida too. That's kind of the number one place we bring stuff. There, right? That's where it started over there. But this will be a 7-day-a-week, 6-day-a-week operation. It'll cost you $1 to get in if you're a resident. If you're a contractor, we'll charge you by the cubic yard with whatever you bring in. And then we'll work through our River Birch contract and have the stuff hauled off in dumpsters. And then again, the green debris will chip or haul off. So it'll be a pretty cool little facility. We've modeled it after one we saw in Jefferson. We're just going to make it a little bit bigger. And again, you can drive up on it and back up to the dumpsters. You're throwing stuff down instead of trying to throw it up and over, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the other big thing I'm excited about next year is, again, we talked about green industry in the last segment. But we're really hyper-focused, or I'm hyper-focused, on the carbon sequestration world. Not so much the injection side. We've heard a lot about what's going on with the stuff in St. James or St. John and Tangier around Lake Maurepas.
Right.
But I'm really focused on the coastal aspect of it and how we can take coastal restoration and turn it into carbon sequestration, which you can sequester in a spartina or a bullwhip or a mangrove, which you can sequester in the soil. And I really want to be the first parish to have a comprehensive sequestration plan so that we can entice private investment to come into Lafourche and really recreate our marsh. Chairman Klein, who has been on the show before, and the CPRA have done wonders for us in Lafourche and Terrebonne when it comes to hurricane protection and building coastal restoration projects. But we lost 60 square miles because of Hurricane Ida. And as much as Chairman Klein loves Lafourche and Terrebonne, especially Lafourche, he's not going to give me the kind of money I need to go rebuild those 60 square miles, right? He might, and I keep asking him all the time, but I don't think he will. So if we can go to people, and we've had groups come down, and there are several of these bigger investment companies that have hired vice presidents of carbon neutrality to look at these sorts of things and how that plays in the credit market like a mitigation bank would.
Yeah.
So if you come build, 1,000 acres of marsh,
you gotta have
what does that generate you in the carbon sequestration credit world? And what is that worth to you as a company for your offsets around the world? What is that worth to you for your offsets in Louisiana? And then we have probably 7 major landowners in Lafourche Parish on the southern end. As those landowners, what does that mean to them? Can they then sell those credits back to companies? So we've partnered with a company called Elos out of Hammond, who does a ton of environmental work. Really cool group. And we're going to work with them to really build that plan over probably the first. They've already started on it. We've met with them this year, but really kick it off and meet with the landowners probably sometime between the first of the year in Mardi Gras, and really look at that plan and how we can put it together and start to entice that investment in Lafourche.
I know we only got 30 seconds, but I know Maurepas was some injection wells in the middle of it. That's not what you're talking about.
No, I'm actually talking about physically building marsh and planning it.
I got you.
We're going to partner with Nichols and the stuff that they're doing at the farm with their Louisiana Native Plant Initiative. See wood plants and Betnep, see wood plants sequester the most carbon, and then really start to put dirt in the ground. And plant it, and then start a credit market.
So not just hide it and drill it deep down and inject
We're
it in.
We're going to let Mother Nature do the work for us.
I got you. Well, Archie, man, thank you. Man, things are looking up for Lafourche, and appreciate your time.
Yep. Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year to you. We'll be right back for more Bite Time after this.